Okay, so I'm going to Warwick Castle again, and I'm in the same situation that I was in last time I went, which is that it's raining today, raining tomorrow, raining the day after, the day after that, day after that, day after that, and I'm actually going to be gone in a few days. I'm going back to Malaga, so I'm not going to be here that long. And when I come back, I'm only going to have 2 days, and then I'm going to go back to my sister's for a week. So yeah, this will basically, I've only got 3 days. I know that I've had quite a few days because I've been wanting to go back to Warwick Castle since Friday. It was raining all Friday. Saturday my pass wasn't valid. Sunday raining. Monday raining. Tuesday raining. And I don't know what's going on with England, but it's just raining every single day now. And it's really really annoying. But yes, we're gonna go to Warwick Castle in the rain. At least there's lots of things to do inside, but it takes a long time to get there. But I want to see the light show. It's just annoying because I really want to go there to do a walk or something, and I can't do there a walk. But I can't do it tomorrow, and I can't do it the day after, and I can't do that after that. I could do it on Wednesday. I think Wednesday is going to be a better day. But because it's one day before I go to Malaga, I feel like I don't want to do a long walk the day before I'm about to go on holiday because I want to have energy for when I go on holiday. So I don't want to be like exhausted from a long walk the day before. So walking in the rain is what we're going to have to do. And anyway, and I seem to have got about 27 odd socks in my drawer. I have no idea how that's happened. I keep trying to find the pairs, the matching pairs, and then I end up just finding more and more odd socks. So I've seemed to have lost half my socks, but one of each pair, of course. And yeah, and I don't know. I'm also, I don't like what's happened to Europe. I really don't like what's happened to Europe. I feel like whatever happened with like the Roman Empire or all the empires, that people get greedy. You think, wow, we're going to take over one more, take over one more, take over one more, take over one more, and then you just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you form some sort of empire. And that's basically what Europe was doing, just creating some sort of empire, not through war but through union with these different nations. But I think it is come to a collapse. Why? Because you've started inviting Muslim countries in. I think your greed to get more countries involved has actually destroyed Europe, because you've started letting in countries that don't share the same values, don't share the same, the point of having like a European Union should actually be so that you can go to those countries without needing a visa. I think that's pretty much the only thing that I see the European, like I know nothing about business, I know nothing about trade, and I know things have definitely increased ever since we've not been part of Europe, but I don't understand why would things be more expensive if we're not in Europe than if we are. I mean, if I was to make a suggestion, I would say that Europe should be divided into three. You have the Arctic ones, which would be, I guess, the people who like living in colder countries, and then you'd have the main Europe, which is probably including Poland. I would include Poland. I think Poland is very similar to the rest of us now. But yeah, Greece. I liked Greece being in. I remember doing this when I was younger. When I was a child, I used to think, I like having the European Union and other European unions. I think the Arabian, I think there should be an Arabian Union, and I'm not too sure which countries that should include, because I'm not saying that the borders need to be taken down or anything. I think the countries can stay exactly the same. Like with Persia, I would like to kind of join it with something, but I don't know what really to join it, because Persia and Iraq are very different, I think. I mean, I've never really been there, so this is something that I've not done before, like dividing the groups out. This is something I did when I was a child. I was thinking, if I was God, if I owned the world, what would I do? And I always liked the idea of a group of nations joining together, a group of nations here, a group of nations here. And so I did spend quite a lot of time thinking, well, I'll join this group, and I'll join this group, and I'll join this group, and I'll join this group. I spent a long time doing that, and I think when I grew up, I kind of realised that people argue, people fight, people don't agree on each other, and you can't just say I'm going to join those nations together because they might hate each other, and therefore this is not something that I've done over the last 10 years. Why? Because I matured and I got to a point where I realised that you can't just join nations because the nations don't like each other. But I think if Islam was to leave and to be out of the world, then that would take away the division. They think that a lot of Islamic people think that Islam is unity, and it's not. It is dividing dividing between Sunni and Shiite. It's dividing the world because it's just a spirit that's very against me. But how against me are you? How much truth you have? I don't think there's any truth in anything. I mean, Muhammad has come back. How many of those Sunni and Shiites knew that Muhammad would actually be reincarnated as a sort of Saudi prince? I don't think any of them predicted that. So whatever they believe, they were all wrong. And once they've realized that they're all wrong, and hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen, because they might become dangerous if they are told that they're wrong. Some people are Muslim, but they're like a loose Muslim. So if their religion was to be proven wrong or something, they don't really care. That's a loose Muslim. They don't really care. They are just getting on with the rest of the people. If the rest of the people want Islam, then fine, they'll just accept it. It's not really my spirit, because I don't want to accept it. My spirit is actually hating it, because it's just everything that I hate. So if you don't see any faults with it, then maybe there's faults with you. But at the same time, maybe you're just scared and you don't want to piss off the people that are dangerous and violent and are going to fight for this religion. So there are different types of Muslims, and not all Muslims are bad. Some are just Muslim because they don't want to cause tension with other people. I understand that. I didn't insult Islam for the first 10 years of my tribulation, because I knew that I'm working with lots of Muslims through my massage job, and that's the only kind of income that I'm getting. They're the only people that were actually helping me with my daily life, even though I didn't like the job. I couldn't speak out against it because of that reason. So if you're in that same position, then I understand that. My war is against the religion, but really it's against anyone who would fight to keep the religion alive. I want to get rid of the religion. Now, if you're not bothered and you're just happy with what everyone else wants, then that's different to if you're willing to actually fight to keep your religion in the world. But yes, once that's happened, once it's fallen and it's gone, and all the dangerous people who would fight to keep Islam alive, once they've all gone, they're all dead, then there will be more unity, because you will all know that Christ is real. And a real person. And okay, even that truth might take 7 years for it to, because a lot of people are still going to keep hope in Jesus returning, and a lot of people are going to say, no, I am Christ lives in us, Christ is a consciousness, you're just Eve, that's nothing, that's just your blood, we're the spirit. There's going to be a lot of people saying a lot of different things. And I don't really care. Like I'm not here to actually rule or control anything. I just want a nice big house, and I just want to be left alone, basically. But I like the idea of nations joining and forming some sort of Europe, Arctic Union, Olympus. I like the name Olympus. It sounds. Or Olympus or Olympia, you can call it whatever. But the Olympia Union, Greece is definitely the better country out of all those sort of north, south, east Europe countries. But I think they should form their own union, and I think the only real point of the union is that you shouldn't need a visa to go to these places. If you live in a certain continent, you shouldn't need a visa, and maybe you shouldn't even need a visa to work. I mean, you could have some sort of rulings where you do have borders and you do have systems, but that can control whether or not you enter into these different areas of that specific union group. But I like there being lots of different union groups, and it non-being changeable. You cannot change it. Once these unions have set, that is it. This is the land, this is the flag of that land. If you go into that country with a different flag and refuse to, you can wave your other flag, but if you refuse to wave the flag of the country, then that's a sign of war against that country, I feel. So I, as God, would like in my world to say that these are the lands, these are the flags that belong to this land, and these are the union groups. Europe, I like Europe, but I don't like it being as big as it is, because when you get the thing as big as it is, you get people with different views, and then you start like tolerating it. This Romania or whatever is Albania is part of the union, the European Union, and we need to start changing and adapting and becoming more like them. This is not how it should be. No, they should have. Europe should be certain type of people. English people and French people are very similar, and now that I've seen Poland, I didn't know anything about Poland, and I've seen a little bit about it, and I think the Polish people if you would tell me that there's like 5 million English people in Poland, I would probably believe that, because you look very similar to the English people. So it's all groups. It all seem like the same thing. And when nations start looking like the same thing, acting like the same thing, thinking like the same thing, why not have some sort of union group? But the union group shouldn't get so big, because then they start becoming greedy, and they start, other countries start getting feeling left out and stuff. So if Greece was to form its own union with all the neighboring countries, so if Greece, I see Greece as kind of like the main one out of them, but if Greece was to join with Turkey, and okay, they have a lot of Muslims in there, so Greece and Turkey cannot mix right now, I know that, but if Islam was to fall, and people in the countries were to realize that they're wrong about God and everything that God wants and stuff, if that was to fall, then maybe Turkey would want to be more like Greece, and they could use Greece as an example. And I liked Greece being in Europe, but technically, I think it would be quite strong if it was with its neighbouring countries, and setting a good example for its neighbouring countries. And, that's what the grouping should be about. It should be about groups joining with their neighbours, not joining with things that are a long distance away. And the Arabia, I love the sound of the Arabia, and I'm thinking, like, what can be joined in this? And Israel and Jordan, okay, I think maybe they should actually become the nation after Islam is gone. Maybe Israel and Jordan should actually become one nation, and easily get rid of the borders, but only after this would be whenever Islam is gone, whenever the veiling and the nonsense of women belittling, whenever that's gone, maybe things can be very different. And maybe that can become part of the Arabian, it shouldn't be about race. I was thinking maybe the Arab nations, should all join and call themselves the Arab nations, but that's a race relation. It shouldn't be about, oh, this is where all the Arabs live. No, it should be, this is where the majority of Arabs lives, but Arabia sounds quite nice, and it's a big area, and therefore if there was an Arabian Union that actually included Jews, and Jewish people as part of their mixture, England and Poland might be slightly different. England and Spanish people look different. In Spain they have a lot more tans. I think the younger people look very similar. But I think that's only because England doesn't look like England any longer. England just looks like people from all over the world mashed together. So to work out what an English person looks like actually is quite difficult. I was brought up in London, so I was brought up in a very multicultural kind of area, and therefore. Yeah, but Islam was not really a big thing in England in the areas that I was in. It was minimal, but it was like 2% or something. So it was very minimal. When you're living in multicultural, and multicultural just means 2% of Islam, that's it's not noticeable. It's when it becomes, 6% is now what it is. But I'm not living in a 6% area. I'm living in like a 60% area. I don't know. I mean, Nichols itself is now very Islamic. I don't know why the government has started. Maybe they just started filling up all the houses with Islamic people or something. I don't really know what's going on in Nichols, and Birmingham specifically, the whole place is becoming more and more Islamic, and I really do not like it at all. But yeah, this is what happens when Europe joins with Islamic countries. They start, because that's part of it. Part of it should be like you should have free borders between these different groups, and if you start inviting people that are thinking very differently, then they are going to come to the better countries. And part of it should be that part of the unions should be that, okay, most of the tax money goes on the country where the people are spending. England joined with UK, so UK, all the taxpayers' money goes to help the whole of UK. When you pay tax, you're not just paying for fire engines in your local town, you're also paying for things around the country. You're paying for facilities all around the country. But if you're wanting to go on holiday and do like day trips or weekend trips around your country, these are nice things, and you want to enjoy all of the local area. And likewise, if you have Europe, you can go to places in Europe and maybe not have to pay £40 for a visa. I think that should be the difference. Just a visa. Like, you shouldn't necessarily, maybe you need a visa to work, but if you're just going there for 2 weeks, you shouldn't need a visa, and that's the only difference. So if I was to go to Greece in the future, I don't mind paying £40 or even £20 or whatever, depending on what it is, £40 for a visa. That's the difference between going to your neighbouring countries versus you have to pay an extra £30-40 or something. That should be all it is. But yeah, and if Israel does join with Arabia, why not? Why not? I mean, I know that they'll still have their borders, and it won't be a different country, and it won't be run in a different way, but you'll have a European Union or type of Arabian Union that kind of just says that we are all friends. I'd want Israel to become friends with the ex-Muslims, but yeah, it has to be ex-Muslims. Muslims are people that have chosen a religion that's opposite to me, and well, because I like Israel, and they're being opposite of me, they're going to hate Israel. So that can't work until Islam is taken out of the way. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing that maybe tomorrow or something, actually drawing the borders of this is Arabia, this is Persia, this is Olympia, this is Europe, this is Arctic, America, South Africa, North Africa. I guess Russia is just a big land, and it doesn't have that many people in it, but it's just a big, gigantic land. So I can't really join with anything because it's big enough as it is. And then China, I guess, is also big, and then you can have Asia, I guess the Asian Union. I don't know if that's going to include India, or I don't know. But the other one that I've made was Anistan. So the Anistan Union and the so I would like, because I like the idea of having these sort of grouping systems. And it shouldn't really affect your trade. Why should it affect your trade if you're trading with someone outside of if you want to have some sort of trading agreement, well, that's what the UN should be for. The United Nations. United Nations should be. Right now, Europe is almost competing with the United Nations to be exactly the same as this. United Nations should be just a group of people who've got trading deals. So if you want to trade within the United Nations, that should be the sort of Europe of what Europe is trying to do. Europe, it's like the United Nations are in competition with Europe, and that you're trying to be the same thing by just inviting more and more people into this European thing, and it's not this. That should be the United Nations. Do not confuse the United Nations with Europe. They should be. Europe is the smallest section. The United Nations is the larger trading deal section, and yeah, I just, if I was Christ, and if the whole world saw me as Christ, as being like, how a person should be or could be, or, you don't have to be exactly like me or anything, but if I was like the figurehead of it, then every country would need to sort of be more westernized, be more similar to each other, because you'd have me as a figure. Right now you do have Jesus as a sort of figure, and I guess that Jesus, this figure has united lots and lots of nations because everyone wants to be like Jesus. But yeah, Jesus isn't Christ, and people calling him Christ is actually just causing division, because that's not the truth, and therefore, but if people knew the truth, which is that I am Christ and I am God as well, that would unite the whole world. And maybe Arabia can become, after Islam's gone, then I don't see why Arabia and Saudi Arabia and all these places can't become part of the UN, and Russia. You just need to understand that I'm not in favor of Islam. If you knew that God does not like Islam, and that Islam is a punishment for people who just want to worship lies and reject the truth, and say that they know the truth. I know that Jesus is God. I know the truth. There's so many people that are like that, and it's not the truth. You are saying you know the truth when you do not know the truth, and therefore a punishment was like, well, I'm going to give you a religion completely full of lies, and if you see any truth in it, well, that just proves that you don't know the truth, and you are just lying and about how you know the truth.